It's even kind of funny to think about. If you ever watch a sales consultant lose a deal in real time, and that's not the funny part here, it's how this particular situation comes into being. You see, the presentation is climax of all of the items that you've worked so hard to gain the information on coming together so you have the ability to paint a picture for the customer of how this vehicle could be the best possible thing for their life. And the consultants that are skilled at needs assessment, or at least put in the effort to get to know who the customer is, all of a sudden you don't do this thing that I remember watching. It was like a car wreck in slow motion. It was just one of those watching a guy give a walk around and having it be like a PowerPoint presentation of basically here's this, here's that, here's the other. And in real time, I'm watching the customer's eyes glaze over and they're turning off and shutting down. Now, every consultant has been through this at least once. We learn a lesson from it pretty quickly. And we know when somebody tunes out and they're no longer paying attention to us. And when it's part of the process for us to give a presentation on the vehicle, we need to make sure that that presentation is memorable. There's a lot of cognitive psychology that backs a lot of this up. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and we're going to talk about this today is how do we paint that picture to make it so what we give the customer sticks? How do we select what actually matters when we show a customer a vehicle on a presentation? And how do we make sure that when the customer is there and we're working with them, we're getting the right information? And then, when all is said and done, we are going to put an end to this data dump dilemma because it's not something that any of us should have to deal with. Let's get into this. If you haven't been on my podcast before, my name is Andrew Sardone. I am a longtime trainer in the automotive industry. I've worked with many brands, thousands and thousands and thousands of sales consultants, and I specialize in a wide variety of areas in the automotive industry. One of them is customer experience. And so this podcast, it's all about that. And so I'm bringing 25 plus years of experience in the training industry and a lot of sales experience as well. I basically was born with a wrench in one hand and a contract in the other. I love tooling on cars and I love selling them as well. So dealership life has basically been my life. Now, into the good stuff here. I like researching how human beings operate inside the brain. A reason for this is that there are rules. And with myself, I used to say, I live in a world of logic until I realized that emotion drives everything. And when I find people and I bump into people that will say exactly those words of, I make my decisions purely based on logic, I have to stop and giggle a little bit and then I get them all riled up. And I'm like, so what'd you make that decision on? But cognitive psychology has a lot of evidence to show why we act the way that we do and why these rules are in place and why emotion is the driver of everything. A long time ago, when I was selling, and I think I actually may have told this story in one of the past podcasts, but you're going to hear it again. I remember when I was selling, I ended up giving a walk around to somebody that had what I felt was an incredibly large amount of value. Basically, they came in, they wanted to see this Volkswagen Passat, and I gave them a walk around on all 365 things that are on the vehicle. And they looked at me and they were like, "What?" And they left. And I don't blame them. Looking back at past me, I made a lot of mistakes. And fortunately, I was pretty good at learning from them because my money was attached to every single one of those mistakes. But the reason that they left wasn't because the car didn't have enough value. It definitely had that. I'm convinced that they left because in that particular situation, I was probably a bit overwhelming, and they straight up said that there was a lot on this vehicle and there's a lot to go wrong. And many people have that opinion and they carry that around and they basically wear it. And now, this day and age, when we have vehicles that are far more complicated than they ever have been, we really got to take to heart what the brain can actually do and what it's built for. Our brain is not meant to pack away every single little thing. When you hear about people that have just these amazing memories, these photographic eidetic memories, it, these individuals, they're special, but essentially their brain is on record the whole time. That's exhausting, packing away all of that stuff. So if you have one of these individuals and you're giving a walk around in the vehicle, sure, give them all 365 things that are on there. Problem is that we'll never know what individual that is walking through the front door. So we gotta play by just the generalized rules of humanity. And cognitive science has proven over and over and over again, and you can actually test this. It's pretty wild when you actually do see it in person, that the average person can only retain about 7 things, give or take 2 in the positive, 2 in the negative. And this is why I've always said to people that if you're gonna give a presentation on a car, know who it is because you have a finite number of items that you are allowed to show that customer. And if you show them too much, the important things become minimized. Or get this, the brain just straight up deletes them. And this is because we only have so much bandwidth to deal with. Yes, our brains are incredibly fascinating and they do amazing things. But end of the day rolls around, they are very limited in some ways. And when somebody's shopping for a vehicle, they're only looking for 5 to 7 to 9 things that are gonna change their life, and when they come in, if we can figure out what those 5 to 9 things are, we can hone in on what's important, and the customer remembers all of it. But one of the cool things to know, though, at least it's cool as far as interesting, is if you're given a walk around in a vehicle and you're showing 20 different things, the brain will start simply deleting memory. And it's not memories of things that are ingrained. Those memories are going to be there for a long time. It's the fact that you've just given them a ton of stuff and a lot of stuff the brain just does not care about. And as you're giving them all this information, they're trying to bank away, okay, that's important, check, that's important, check, that's important, check. And you checked all their boxes, and then all of a sudden you add like 10 different things to it. And they're going and their brain just forgets all those lines, all those check boxes, all this reasoning as to why this car is the perfect one for them. And as you know, my podcast, as of late, I've developed a tool to go along with it. This is just the trainer in me saying, hey, here's some free stuff. This stuff's pretty awesome. And I hope it helps you sell another car. So you can go to AutoKnerd.com and grab the tool for this one. Now, the tool this week is called the Walkaround Planner. Now, the tool for this week is the Rule of 7, the walk-around planner. The walk-around planner gives you the ability to be able to choose the right 7 features that connect emotionally with this customer. Yeah, again, you can grab it right off the webpage, just go to autonerd.com and it's on the latest post or just scroll on down. I always put it in the show notes. But this tool allows you to figure out this is what I need here, this is what I need here, and this is what I need here. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. Harvard Business Review dove into this of why exactly people make decisions and how does those decisions come into being. And what they found out was is that 95% of purchase decisions happen subconsciously and it's driven by emotion. It's not driven by logic. When you look at a human being from a more of a base level and you take just instinct, just raw emotion, and look at your dog, look at your cat, that's what they run on. Their ability to make decisions on what the world is simply just telling them. And that's what they do all the time. Human beings, we were wired from day one to do that, to look at the world and make decisions primarily for things like survival and happiness. But logic was never there. But logic is more of a relatively new thing, so to speak, because emotion being the underlying driver makes it so we can select those things in our life that are going to make us happy, and we can make those instinctual moves that really just lead into a lot of common sense. But either way, the happier you are with this future decision, the higher the likeliness is that you're going to purchase. And neuroscientists have also discovered that when the emotional part of the brain is damaged, people can't make decisions. Your decision-making processes are gone, and isn't that interesting? So, no matter how much logic you have out there, no matter how much reasoning that you have that is proven of, "You should go ahead and do this with your money and buy this car because it will make you happy," and here are all the amazing reasons of how it'll positively transform your life. If that part of your brain's damaged, the emotional side, you cannot say yes to that decision, even if it makes perfect sense. So, this means that people buy purely on emotion and then they justify with logic. And this is another reason why when it comes to things like delivery, if you have a little bit of extra time between F&I and them signing the contract, always go over the car. Always take them out to the car. This beefs up emotion. So when things go sideways, maybe in F&I, that beefed up emotion, that's cementing to that vehicle orients them back to the vehicle that you are selling them. But with this, we want to keep that emotion going. So things like price, specs, warranty, those are just comfort blankets. Again, if you rely on the specs, the warranty, the car, the price to sell it, you're doing this all wrong. People pay for the emotional boost. This is why the luxuries, especially when you look at like the jewelry industry or you look at really anything that puts a smile on people's faces that is far too large, all of a sudden the cost of their items is through the roof. So realistically, what actually moves the customer is how the car makes them feel. But we are in control of that imaging of how it makes them feel. Now, when you hear somebody, and I have said this in a long, long time, but when you hear somebody say, get out there and control your customer, you really have to turn around and look at them every so often and go, what the hell does that mean? Because you can't go and physically control somebody. We have many laws that say that you simply just cannot do that. But control really does come into the fact that people will stick around when they're having an enjoyable time. So if 95% of purchase decisions are purely based on emotion and not logic, this means that the experience that the individual has weighs far, far greater than the product, you, in a sense, the process, the price, all of it. It really just comes down to how the customer is emotionally situated at that point in time. And are we prepared to allow them to be happier from this point on? Now, Harvard also found out that 84% of car buyers bought the vehicles due to love of driving. And non-practicality. Yeah, this again means that people are coming in saying, "I didn't buy the vehicle because of the deal. I bought the vehicle because of how it felt behind the wheel," which means that old saying is correct. That's what seals the deal is emotion, and we've been saying it the whole time. The feel of the wheel seals the deal. It's why the test drive is so important. It's why putting the customer simply behind the steering wheel to grab that steering wheel is 100% critical to your future success. It's not the price. It's not the product. These things don't weigh even close to as much as we think compared to feelings. And when you overload the customer with data, you start to pull them back because what you're doing is you're activating logic when the customer's trying to justify with their emotions during that awkward silence, and we all know what I'm talking about. We slap the contract down on the desk and we go, okay, final pencil right there. What do you think? And we want to speak up. We want to say something. And whenever we speak up and we start to say something, well, all of a sudden the deal goes sideways because you're activating logic. You're not allowing emotion to continue to do what emotion does so well, and that's close deals for us. Try to back off that whole logic thing for just a moment. Because what you're going to find is that the emotional side is, well, also more fun for you to work in because now we can bring happiness to the game. Now we can bring enjoyment. And it's not just about the paperwork, it's about getting the customer something that will actually assist them in ways beyond just practicality. We start to get into fun, enjoyment, laughter, things of that nature that makes the car buying experience entirely different. The rule of seven isn't about time, it's about focus. And the reason that I like to use the rule of seven and teach the rule of seven is because the human brain can retain so much. And this is a way of really understanding another human's mental bandwidth. With the rule of seven, only show 5 to 7 things. The lesser number of items that you can make impactful, the better off you're going to be, just because you can really start to bake in the value of those individual pieces. But if you end up getting the nine, that's okay. Just make sure that those 9 things really drive into the desire, the need, and the want. 5 to 7 things that customer is going to get excited about. Things that really do dig down to their emotional state. It's also why I tell you that hot buttons are just a gigantic pile of garbage because people usually just stop at the hot button. Oh, you're a power person. Yeah, but why? But why? So dig down. And as you dig on down, you'll find where desire sits. And once you find that desire, that's going to be what you want to deal with. That excites them. Then need is what solves that problem. Now, this isn't quite as fun. You need to get it, you go ahead and do it. And then the want side of it. This is where we make it personal to them, letting them know that this is the best possible thing that you can do right now because I'm telling you, because I'm painting the picture based on your life. I'm reinforcing your emotions. And this is where partnering comes in, making sure that you're standing right next to that customer saying, "Hey, I got you. This is okay. You told me everything that you wanted. And since you told me everything that you wanted, here's those 5 to 7 awesome things." Because in the whole history of automobiles, nobody's ever actually purchased the whole car. They've never bought into the whole thing. Goes back to the rule of 7, making sure that one item meets their desire and excites them, fits their need and solves the problem that they're looking to solve, and also makes it personal. Because the personal side of it is the emotional side that cements it and makes it so the customer has to have it. Now, pulling from the free tool this week, the Rule of 7 Walkaround Planner, we break into this first off by selecting 7 of the most emotionally relevant features. Now, those 7 most relevant features, you're simply going to jot them down. This particular tool is meant for you to utilize while you're working with the customer. So that's pretty slick. So write those 7 features on down. Do not exceed that. Replace features if you need to replace features. Knock off the ones that you find to be lesser important than the next. If you miss something that is important, the customer will ask, but you need to find 7 features that you can embed a lot of energy into to beef up those emotions. Now, the next one, we have to connect each one to a benefit that triggers that emotion. This might mean that you might need to step away for a quick second and go, okay, so what is the benefit of each one of these based on this individual? Because you can take anything and create multiple benefits off of it and multiple ways that it could help somebody. So think that through. The next part in this allows us to reflect, pause, and watch how they react and take note of it. Because as you're taking note of it and you're jotting it down on here, you're learning. And as you're learning what this is, it starts to cementing you the behaviors that you need when you bring these items across to the customer. If all of a sudden you're working with customers and you're starting to feel happier, well, that means that the customer is feeling more charged up. That means that the customer is making your life easier. And in this business, we got enough hard things going on right now this year. In this business, it's tough enough. So try as you can to reflect on these items and see where you went right. And at that moment, log it. You're going to want to make sure that you do that again and again and again. Because once you figure out this is how I do this to make people happy, all of a sudden you're not going to stop. You're going to have happier customers that will close at higher gross. Then also redirect, go where their interest lives. Don't just simply start rattling things off just to rattle some things off. Then the last one at the top here is redirect. This means go where their interest lives. So if you got somebody standing in front of you and they're worried about driving at night, show them things on the vehicle that will allow you to say, "Hey, you said that driving at night's difficult for you. Here's something for your peace of mind." And this allows you to direct it into their zone of interest, which creates maximum effect when you start showing these pieces. Or if there's like, "Hey, you know what? I just keep my car for years." Well, let me show you something. Here's credibility and reliability. We got it in spades. Here's all these articles. Be ready with an evidence manual, maybe. Or you love good design? Of course I do. You want good looking cars? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Here's your daily dose of pride. Imagine every morning when you open up your garage door and you have to look at that. Make sure it's a good looking car. The planner you can print right off of the link that is in the show notes. Just go ahead and click that and give it a download because this is meant to keep us in check. If we want to get better, we got to practice a little bit. So go ahead and mash that button. Also, hit subscribe while you're at it so you continue to get these tools. So let's talk about the psychological side because the psychological breakdown on this is pretty cool. And here's how it works out. If you get the emotional side rolling, dopamine kicks in, and that's one of those feel good kind of chemicals. It makes the brain go that this feels like the right signal, and I think I'm going in the right direction here. That green light, when it's kicked on, all of a sudden logic comes around. and it goes through what you've told it, and you haven't overloaded the brain. You've only given the customer's brain those 5 to 9 things, and you've stayed within their emotional wheelhouse. At this point, logic kicks in and surveys the room and makes sure that we're not overstepping our bounds. And logic goes ahead and says, well, is it good on gas? Yes, it's awesome on gas. All right, cool, cool emotion. Slow your roller here real quick. Is it safe? Yeah, or I wouldn't be here. What is wrong with you, logic? Okay, all right, all right. Well, it sounds great. So I'm on board. But that's why we need both of them. But you got to have them in the right order. Because if you run on logic, logic, logic the whole time, emotion never has a chance to bridge that gap between that $500 payment that the customer has now and the $800 one that they're going to have. That's emotion that bridges that gap. That's emotion that's carrying your paycheck. But logic needs to say that it's okay. Now, if emotion is that driver, and the only way that I can make sure that that emotion is hyper targeted to the individual that I'm working with, that again ties back to needs assessment and making sure that during needs assessment, I'm getting those emotional drivers. I'm knowing what activates that individual. If I don't have that information, I'm just riding on logic. And logic is at 250 a month. Logic is at the number that they said that they would only pay when they walked in with the amount for their trade-in that they feel is worth their weight in gold because that's how they perceive their vehicle. It's perfect in every way. Listen, bro, it's a blue velour rust bucket out there in a K car. It's not worth 16 grand. It made it this long. I commend you for that. But listen, your interior, exterior packages have worn off and the thing is just falling apart in the parking lot. Fine, then I want you to make it up on the deal. Oh, whatever. The thing is that even an individual like that, that rolls on in that 1990s K car, we can sit down with them and start to adjust. But we need to figure out where their emotional state is. We need to figure out what makes them tick, why they've had this appliance for many, 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 many years, because that is going to have a story that leads into this one, how they took care of it, so on and so forth. So it's really that feeling, that drive that gets them the logic to say, yes, this is good. So we show them the things that they want and the things that logic confirms and says, yes, this is good. But again, you got to bridge that gap when it comes to the payment because more than likely their payment's going to go up like it always does when you're buying a new car or anything these days. Now, I get it because I was and still am very techy. And I love knowing all the little minute details about everything. And this is why I thrived in the automotive market, especially in sales and then in training. If we tell the customer everything that's on the car and we show every single button, it's not making you look smart. It's making the customer feel small. And behavioral science actually has a name for this. It's called analysis paralysis. That means that there's just too many choices to lead to, well, no choice at all. This is again where logic is steering the ship going, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. And that's why you see a lot of people that haven't updated their mannerisms of today fail because they fail simply due to the fact that they're not willing to put in the effort to invest in the side that emotion is there. In one study, 24 options of get this jam led to only 3% of people buying. But the company simplified it in the survey and they reduced it down to 6 options. And what they found out is that all of a sudden 30% of the people sampling these things were buying. Okay, that is a very basic thing. That's simply just food. Now we go ahead and say, well, here's the car. And some manufacturers out there will go ahead and give you billions of options. And I'm not joking. Look at some of the combinations that some of these brands have today, especially in the truck industry. And your brain's just going to melt. Eventually, you'll just go, there's just too much here. It's far too overwhelming. But the same thing happens when we just simply flood them with data is look at all the stuff that's on this car. They only needed 5 to 7 things. It just show them 7 meaningful things, and then they can make a decision because they are not in this their brain isn't in this area of just complete paralysis where they're looking at everything and they're no longer able to actually analyze it. Hence the name analysis paralysis. So keep this in mind. You limit it down to only a few things that you show. Again, instead of everything. And now the customer starts to understand it easier and we start to pump that dopamine up. But when that decision comes around, the customer's not going to remember the torque numbers. Those were just enhancers to your conversation at the time. Is it good to know them? Yeah. Is it important? to have kicking around? No, your customer's never gonna really modify the vehicle or put it on a dyno or really any of that stuff. That's a very minute number of people that actually really do care about things like torque figures and horsepower. They remember how you made them see themselves in the moment inside that vehicle. The story that you told that matched their life to the vehicle that you're showing them. Because again, nobody buys the whole car. They buy it for those reasons that they walk through the front door. That connection to that car in that sense, it drives that vehicle off the lot a lot faster than any discount ever will. So next time you give a walk around on a vehicle, really do step back and ask yourself, am I showing product or am I showing possibility? Because possibility is where emotion sits. Product is where logic sits. And you got to get emotion going before you can even think of introducing logic. Logic should just simply come in and go, yep, all the boxes are checked. And we got some feel goods up in here. And so I'm good with it too. Now, do yourself solid. Click the link that's in the show notes, download the Rule of Seven walk around planner. Also, while you're down there, click that little subscribe button for me real quick. That helps me help you, helps me stay a little motivated to keep these things going for you. Now there's a lot of awesome stuff going on over here at AutoNerd right now. The AutoForge is off and running. We have that in the field and it's going really well. That is a CSI repair tool. So if you are in need of CSI help, just shoot us a message, andrew@autonerd.com, and I'm happy to help you. Don't forget that K. That CSI repair tool just hyper focuses on what people need. And as far as that thing goes, the webpage will reflect that in the next, hopefully, week or so here. It's all podcast stuff, but I really want to get that up there so I can start showing people because that is a huge help when people are going, well, our store CSI is absolutely terrible. That's when we come in and help you correct that in ways that establish long term patterns so those issues hopefully don't come up again anytime soon. But the Rule of Seven walk around planner, print it out, fill it out, give it to everybody on your showroom floor, play with it, maybe even make it into a fun challenge. This is also there for you to be able to challenge yourself, of course. This is where we can build up this story and practice making it relevant to activate the customer's emotions. And you'll be amazed once you get this thing going, how much smoother and more natural this will all feel. Trust me, for the first two times, it might feel a little weird. But once you start to establish the groove of what it's all about, and you understand that I'm activating someone else's emotions, and this is exactly how I do it, all of a sudden that whole saying of cars don't sell cars, people do. That's what goes on. You can have the fastest sports car that's out there, that's the least expensive on the planet. But if the person that's selling it to you is an absolute jerk, you're not going to buy it. Give it a shot, see what it's all about. Again, the link's in the show notes. You've been listening to the AutoNerd Podcast. My name is Andrew Sardone. You can reach me at andrew@autonerd.com. But remind yourself, get out there, spread that kindness, spread that caring. And when it comes down to sales, it's like 95% emotionally based and 5% based on logic. Let logic just go, yeah, it's cool. Let's buy this. Until next week, AutoNerd out. See ya.